Well, before explaining the code, let me just explain the rules, how we expand the grid and stuff. First, we have a grid or table, what I called in my code, and it has a fixed width and height. All the values in this table are represented as zeros except the one that is in the middle. So this is 1, and all the other values are 0. Now, we said that this point, this specific point, has a value of 1, right? Well, it also has a vector too. In this case, the vector is pointing towards right. So that is fixed it towards to the right. Now, we can play with these vectors, which these vectors are gonna help us expand the table. So let me just show you the next step. I said that this point has a vector towards to the right. Now, this vector will help us determine which way we are going to expand our table. Because it's pointing towards the right, we are going to paint 2 of these blocks to white. Now we expand it towards right. And these 2 points also will have vectors. This point will have a vector towards up, and this one is going to have towards down. Now these vectors are determined by the vector that they were formed. In this case, the vector that is pointing towards right formed these 2 ones, right? So that means that we are going to shift this vector that's pointing towards right to the 90 degrees counterclockwise to get this vector. And that will be our first point vector. So first point is gonna show us the upwards, and the second one is gonna be a vector is gonna show us the position that is the first vector being transformed 90 degrees clockwise. And see, this is pointing downwards. Now let's expand it one more step. This is gonna go up 2 blocks. This is gonna go down for 2 blocks. Now let's show the vectors. Well, this is gonna show towards left, this is gonna show right, this is gonna point towards here, and this is gonna point towards here. I think you now get the way we are forming these new points, new vectors. Well, basically we translate the vector that form the points 90 degrees towards clockwise and counterclockwise, and we make new points. Now let me expand it one more time. This is gonna be like this. And let me show you the vectors again. It's gonna point up, down, up, down. This is gonna be down, up, down, and up. So this is how we form it. We basically continue like this until we just want to stop. I mean, in theory, it can continue to infinity. There's no limit. But our grid has a fixed width and height, which actually limits it. Now let's see the code. Okay, so this is the code. Now I wrote it in order to replicate what I explained. I made a point class which has self coordinates and the direction, and 1 represents right, 2 represents up, 3 represents left, and 4 represents down. So these are basically the vectors that we are gonna determine which way that point will expand. And we have initial point, which is in the middle of the board, and I use these classes to Just plot my graph. There's no need for the numpy. And let me just run it. By the way, I'm gonna upload this code to the GitHub. If you want, you can just copy it from there. Well, it's expanding. Now, when it hits the border, it's not gonna continue to expand. And there is just a pattern that it follows. And we are done. No, now we are done. So there is nowhere to expand. Realize that we have left points that are not touched. It's kind of an interesting pattern. And this is just it. Now, I also advanced the code a little bit further to make this new one. And in this new one, we are gonna start to remove points. Now, in the first one, when the 2 points actually collided, we did not remove any point. What I mean is that we are only converted a point to 1 if that specific point contains the value 0. And in here, as you can see, if the table contains that specific value as 0, we are only going to expand to that point in that case. But now I made it so that if that specific point is containing the value 1, then we are going to convert it to 0, and we are going to remove the point that we have in that specific point of the table. Now this is kind of interesting because after some time there won't be the any pattern that we can predict. So let me just run it and you are gonna see what I mean. Now it seems like it's following a pattern. Well, nice shapes. And by the time it hits the walls, it's gonna behave differently. Now as you can see, it's completely filled the board and it behaves weird because we are removing vectors, we are adding new points. This is just pure chaos. Well, this is just interesting. I just want to show you and realize that we are not adding nor subtracting anything in here. It might be a pattern maybe. Well, let's change the width and height of the graph. So we have 50 to 50. Let's make them odd numbers to be, let's say, 51 to 51. Let's rerun it. Let's see whether anything will change. Okay, this looks like the same. Well, we did hit the borders, and again we have just the pure chaos. And just wait, the middle point is not actually changing to black. Well, it's weird. I don't know why it's not changing. Maybe it might be because of a pattern. It's just fascinating to observe this stuff, I think. Well, that's it. I'm gonna post, as I said, I'm gonna post both of the codes on GitHub. If you want, you can just download it, change some values, and rerun it on your computer. That's all for this video. Have a great day.